Your facial expressions, gestures, posture, and tone of voice are powerful communication tools. They can put people at ease, build trust, and draw others towards you. Or they can offend, confuse, and undermine what you're trying to convey. Almost everybody feels good when someone is kind to them. This is especially true for those who are vulnerable, like people who are recovering from a mental illness like depression, or who are learning to live with dementia, a sick patient, or who have an addiction. Hey everyone, it's Stephanie Gotas together with Miss Darlene Bantilan, and you are listening to An Act of Compassion, the place to create a life you love. Well, what a beautiful day to start our new episode, right, partner?
That's right, partner. And I am so excited for today's episode as we are having not just one or two, but five guests. And guess what? We will be having a doctor, a nurses, and a patients as our guests.
Wow, yes, partner. And I have heard that they are going to share their testimony about their experiences, and I am so excited to know what are those experiences and listen about it.
Yes, partner, you got it right. Because for today's episode, our title is an act of compassion. This means that we are learning from our guest testimony on how our facial expressions, gestures, or body language become a powerful communication tools.
That's right, partner. So now let me introduce to our audience our beloved guests. First, we will be having Mrs. Federico, a senior citizen and a resident of Bacolod City, and she's here to share a bit of her experience during her confinement in the hospital.
Hi everyone, I am Angel and I was confined last week in a hospital. I'm a senior citizen with diabetes. This means I urinate a lot, offend at night, I'm frequently hungry and thirsty, I easily feel tired, and I have sores that don't heal fast enough. Also, as a part of my illness, I feel dizzy, sweaty, and shaky when my blood sugar goes the opposite direction. The nurse who has been taking care of me is somehow irritable. One time, I caught her rolling her eyes when she saw me drinking a bottle of Coke. I feel like she is judging me, as if life is not difficult enough. Living with diabetes makes it worse. The ups and downs of managing this illness is frustrating. If my blood sugar is not too high, it's too low. I admit, I do not listen to her every time she educates me about my illness, so I guess I understand why she's frustrated with me. But she's a great nurse. She takes time to talk to me and my husband. I am very stressed out with my physical condition and my financial situation, but she gave me assurance that it will be okay. That if I exercise every day and stay away from food which increases my blood sugar, such as rice, pasta, and soft drinks, I could control my blood sugar. She said, I won't have to suffer as much as I do now. Before I get discharged, we made a small talk about my medicines, the lifestyle changes that I could make, and about my condition in general. I gave her a hug as a sign of saying thank you.
Wow, this patient's testimony made me remember about my grandmother. You know what, partner? My grandmother is not as well. How about you, partner? What can you say?
Just like you, partner, I remember my grandmother too when I am the one in charge of taking care of her. I believe, partner, that there's more.
Oh, yes, partner. So now let us welcome our second speaker to share with us her testimony, Mrs. Ala Solitas, a postpartum mother.
Hello everyone, my name is Ella Solitas, 3 years of age, and I'd like to share my experiences with you as a postpartum mother. So being a postpartum mother was a roller coaster ride for me, because when you give birth, it's not just all fun. At first, I have actually heard a lot about the experiences that the mothers have went through after they gave birth. Some experienced loneliness, which often lead them to what we call postpartum depression. And as for me, I did not believe that there's such a thing. until I gave birth and sadness started creeping into me. I have found out that there are hormonal changes that happens after giving birth, which leads to what we call baby blues. So let me just share a little bit about this, okay? So baby blues are feelings of sadness that a mother may have in the first few days after having a baby. And as far as I can remember, in my case, 2 days after giving birth, I started to have mood swings. I feel angry, sad, and I cry a lot. There were also a lot of times where I had trouble sleeping, eating, and even making decisions. It was an overwhelming feeling of not being able to do a good job of taking care of my baby. It was strenuous, mentally, physically, and emotionally. Good thing that I was able to talk to my doctor about it, and she shared her experiences to me and gave me some advices. She was very compassionate and I loved talking to her. She told me to get as much sleep and rest as I can, eat a lot of healthy foods, and exercise if I can, and if I have time. She also told me to ask help from my partner, family, and friends and tell them exactly what I feel so that they'll be able to be with me with whatever I'm feeling, which is what I did. And thankfully, with all the help that I've received from the people around me, I was able to go through that phase as a postpartum mother. So with this experience, I have realized how important it is to have a strong and secured support system around you. Because if it weren't for those people, I might have gone to a postpartum depression. Also, showing compassion, even in the tiniest way possible, to the people who needs it is also a huge part because it will make them feel special and loved.
Thank you for that one, Ma'am Solitas. Indeed, being a mother is not that easy.
Yes, partner, that's true. It is a great responsibility for being a mother, and I salute you, Ma'am Sulitas, for being brave in facing such challenges in life.
So now we are going to proceed to our next guest speaker. And this time, we are going to hear a testimony from a nurse. Let's welcome Nurse Janille Portugues as she tells her experience to us.
My name is Janelle Claire Portuguese, 21 years old, and working as a nurse at Riverside Medical Center. In my profession, I have met several types of patients with different types of illnesses. But the case that I consider way challenging for me is this 89-year-old lady who has an Alzheimer's disease. I met her one morning when I was doing my rounds and I heard her shouting to her companion. I came inside the room and took over the old lady. She said that she's hungry and nobody gives her food. But her watcher told me that she has just eaten. I came near her and smiled at her and said, "What do you want to eat?" And she smiled. She asked for a candy. I continued to talk to her until she forgot about the candy. She continued talking about her family and I listened carefully. Understanding and great patience is very important when dealing with people having Alzheimer's disease. And this should be done always because these people needs love and care.
That one is a very touching story, and you know what? Especially when you are a nurse, you truly need to have a very long patience. Am I right, partner?
Yes, partner, that's right. But I think that is the one that I don't possess. Joking. Okay, let's proceed to our next guest speaker. Let us again hear another testimony from a nurse. Let's welcome Nurse Cassie Mero.
Good day, everyone. I'm a nurse. My name is Cassie Claire Mero. I'm 26 years old, and I'm in charge of Alzheimer's patients. It's not easy being the attending nurse for them. They quickly forgot what had just occurred a minute ago, but somehow it is still fulfilling. You know what, why? Because I was able to respond to their needs and check on how they were doing because I was able to assess them. Let me tell you about an event I had with one of my patients last week when I asked him whether he had already taken his meds. He just stared at me, stroking his beard, and looked perplexed by what I asked. He seems as if he's wondering whether or not he's already finished it. He has Alzheimer's. I completely understand. That's my cue to double-check his background. However, he suddenly recalls that he had already taken his medication. After that, I had just made a small talk with him and gave him a thumbs up sign indicating that everything would be fine. But today's round is very stressful. A while ago, I was doing my rounds to my patient, and upon entering the room, she was already hysterical because she had a visitor, which was her daughter, but she didn't seem to recognize her. She was also very aggressive, pointing a finger at her daughter and screaming for her to leave her room. As a nurse, I did my job and did my best to calm the patient. Fortunately, she recognized me as her nurse, and her aggressiveness faded, and she returned to her previous state. So after that, I explained to her daughter why her mother responded the way she did by making a simple gesture with her hand, similar to the speaking in front of people, by elevating her hand just over her tummy level. So thankfully, her daughter is aware of the situation of her mother. So having that experience has taught me to be more patient.
Thank you for that one, Ma'am Cassie. I truly admire our nurses. Even though they struggle a lot, they still able to manage the different situation.
Yes, partner, their efforts are indeed priceless. But going down to our last guest speaker, we don't just have nurses, but a doctor also. Amazing, isn't it? So let's not waste our time. Please welcome Dr. Dave Miado to share his testimony.
So good day everyone, I am Dave Andrew Miado and a doctor of St. Louis Hospital. Dealing with patients with different cases is quite really hard, especially when anticipating their needs. So an example of such a situation is circumcision. Before the start of the procedure, there are things that you always notice when talking with the patient. Mostly, you try to observe their body language. So, how do they feel? What is their gesture? Sometimes, they can either be scared or shy, and the reasoning for it could be many things, like peer pressure, culture, and religion. These things are very common to find out before or at the start of any surgical procedure. These fears can be summarized based on what their gesture is. The things that I always see is the patient fidgeting due to how unsure he is. Sometimes they could be very shy due to the procedure leading to exposing the private area of the patient. So what I always do in these types of situations is to build assurance and to build confidence in the patient. I tell him that the procedure is not that painful, that I have done this procedure so many times already. Another does not show fear or hesitancy to the patient and be confident about the procedure. So another example is the disclosure of the illness of the patient. So the patient usually shows fear, the anticipation of getting unpleasant results, and a feeling of helplessness. So an example would be disclosure of cancer to the patient. The patient usually goes to the stages of acceptance of the illness. Initially, the patient goes into denial or refusing to accept findings, and then they may go to depression or anxiety. They may exhibit anger for having the disease. After that, they may try to find other options. Eventually, they will accept that they have disease. For the doctor, to these kinds of a disclosure, they should be empathic, meaning the ability to sense other people's emotions and the ability to put themselves in the situation of the patient. They should disclose in a calm and a professional manner, frankly, but with compassion. So the doctor should also discuss the treatment option of the patient. So every patient has a different and unique way of reacting to a certain disease that may happen, and doctors should be skillful enough to deal with each patient with empathy and they should enlighten the patient on what could be done and give all the options for the treatment. Lastly, the patient has the freedom to choose either to follow the advice of the doctor, to seek options from other healthcare professionals, or to seek alternative treatments. That's all.
Thank you, Dr. Miado. So we are done hearing their testimonies, and yes, partner, I am so glad that I learned a lot from those experiences. We were able to know that your gestures played a big role in the powerful communication tool that we can use.
Right, partner. But then I just want to ask our guest, what kind of gestures do they think are effective that show love or compassion, especially in their field, in their situations?
As a doctor, being a positive listener and having patience that understands their need is an effective way that shows love to my patients.
I believe that being cooperative with what they are asking me to do shows compassion. Cooperating, especially with my attendant, considering my situation that I am a senior citizen, is a considerable help for them to lessen their pressure.
Being a postpartum mother is not easy. I do understand that being calm and not hysterical in such a situation is an effective way of gesture that supports my attendant with their duty. Not just my nurses or doctor, but also those people around me.
Being a nurse on duty that provides quality care to my patient is not an easy job. I believe that being attentive and empathetic to my patient is an effective gesture that shows my compassion for my line of work.
As I have witnessed different situations with my patients, I have learned that widening your understanding and having long patience is important. Being a soft-spoken nurse to a patient helps them understand their situation. I am not just gaining their trust, but I am also building our relationship with me and my patient, and I believe that it is an effective way of showing my love and compassion to my work.
Thank you, dear guest. Wow, partner, we're not just hearing their testimonies, but also we are learning from them. Indeed, our gestures have an impact on how do we convey our message.
I do agree, partner. I believe that our body language speaks volumes. I remember this saying, and I know all of you guys are familiar with this. Actions speak louder than words. And yes, it is true. Because of what have Martha Graham quoted, our body never lies.
I do agree, partner. So to sum up, we have learned the acts of kindness and compassion can increase well-being and help their recovery. It can also help them overcome loneliness and isolation, build healthy relationship, and improve their self-esteem.
And our gestures, body language, emotions, and expressions are powerful communication tools.
Yes, partner. We would like to thank all of our guests for having them and for sparing their time to share their testimonies. And I believe that our audiences also learn from them.
I would like to thank all the sponsors, Microsoft Teams, Canva, and Microsoft PowerPoint for making this podcast effective. And we would like to end this podcast with a simple quote by Frank Gillette Burgess: "Our bodies are apt to be our autobiographies." Stay
Stay
tuned
tuned
for the next episode.
Thank you for listening. Have a good day, everyone.